where can I go? Where can I go? Where can I go that's safe? Where can I go that's safe? And I remembered I knew this one drug dealer that had a compound with Dobermans that ran the compound. They called him Big Bob.
Where's this compound at?
It's like kind of butt up against East LA, because it was a really good sized lot. And like I said, he had like a 10-foot fence all the way around it, and then the Dobermans guarded the perimeter. And I thought, I'll be safe with Bob. So I called up Bob and said, can I come stay with you until this trial blows over? You know? He's like, sure, darling, come on down, you know? Because I always knew he had a thing for me anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to go stay with Big Bob, because he was big. He was like 6'9", and he weighed about like 300 pounds. That's why they called him Big Bob. Big Bob had nothing to do with prostitution. He was a straight up fucking dope dealer. And I just needed to, we're just hanging at the house. I mean, I'm safe, and the dogs are guarding the perimeter, and I'm in Bob's bed, yeah, and there's not even a TV there. And Bob's smoking freebase, just, you know, constantly talking to me, which is fine. But, I mean, I soared into this black depression, just, you know, I mean, it was like hitting a wall at 100 miles an hour, just bam, you know? And that's what it felt like. It felt like I ran into some black wall at 100 miles an hour, just boom. So I just went right into this horrible depression, you know. So what happened was Bob said he had to make a run, his daily, you know, runs. Oh, okay. And I knew that Bob had a gun in the armoire. There was an armoire in the bedroom, and I knew he had a gun in there. So I decided to kill myself, just off it. Everybody was going to just be better off without me, is the way that I thought. And I could not deal with 20 years in prison. And I was very clear that they were either going to kill me or they were going to stick me in prison for 20 years. And I didn't, you know, I could face either possibility. I just didn't see any way out. So I figured I'd just end it, you know. And I went for the gun as soon as Bob left the house. And I don't know, Bob has his own intuition, I guess, because he came back and he caught me with the gun, and he knew. He's like, oh, no, darling. He said, no. He said, let me show you how you deal with this. Now, cocaine had been very much touted in the media as this wonder drug. It had not been touted as addictive. So let me show you what to do. And, you know, started me freebasing. And he said, this will take care of your depression. And at that point, I mean, okay, why not, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Bob got me smoking it. And it is a great mood elevator. It makes you feel like you are Superman and bulletproof. I can see why there's a market for it.
Yeah. And
it was an instant mood elevator. I mean, my God, who needs Prozac when you got freebase? Whoa, you know?
That should be there's a marketing slogan.
Because this is where I took on a whole new life. It did. The freebase gave me this great idea. Fuck prostitution, fuck the sex industry. I'm going to take on the drug world. I know how to extract. I know how to cook. I know how to freebase. I've got my connections with Eddie Nash, where I can get 98, because I mean, I'm telling Bob, I know where to get 98% proof. When you're freebasing, the mind just goes. You do think you're 100 feet tall, right?
Well, you know what? That's not a bad idea. I mean, other than you know what I mean? Technically, you're right.
Well, that's what, and you know, they love this white girl. And Bob was like, shit, if I took you into the clubs, he said, oh my God. I'm completely amped up on freebase now, and Bob, and I'm thinking, okay, you know, let's do this.
You're fired up. Let's go.
I was so fired up. Oh my God. And so I told Bob, especially I got this 6 foot tall black man with me, right? I said, we're gonna go get the pure stuff from Eddie Nash, and then with you, I can go in to some of these black areas, you know, and the gang members, right? And we can start making some connections. Well, when he first walked me in and introduced me to a couple of these gangs, one was like the Bloods and one was the Crips, yeah. And they were in like warehouses and they were just hanging out, playing pool, hanging out, drinking beer, smoking pot, kind of a thing. He did introduce me in so they knew who I was and they nicknamed me Snow Bunny.
It's close to White Rabbit, isn't it? Wasn't that your CB radio?
Well, I thought it was an interesting play off White Rabbit, yeah. But yeah, they called me Snow Bunny. And, or that crazy white girl, one or the other, And
it's a little more accurate.
These guys are telling me they've never seen a white woman, I mean, and they're wondering, what the hell are you doing down here at 2 in the morning? Because I remember at first you'd think I'd be scared. But these men would tell me, oh, no, I ain't touching you. I'll go to prison for the rest of my life if I touch a white lady. So I was like, they just felt like they would get, what they were telling me is if I touch you, I'm going to go to prison for life or get a death sentence. Because there was no other white girl down there. That's how I moved
now, how
on,
deep, you're saying this is in Compton. I mean, I don't know exactly the area.
Compton and South Central. Well, there were 2 streets. There was Martin Luther King was one. And then this Compton Street was another one. One other street right over by Watts. There was one in Watts. I remember that. So it's in those areas, And he did take me around and introduce me, so they knew me. And in my mind, I'm racking up the money for my defense, right? That's what I was thinking. If I came up with enough money to buy off these cops and buy off the judge, I could get out of this.
Okay, so here, let me ask this. So you're down in Compton and you're the crazy white girl. Was there any, I mean, you said you got Blood and Crips, and I'm assuming they're separate.
Oh, I was introduced to them separately, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
this is when they hated each other, And the whole time, guys are throwing money at me, wanting me to go in the back, and I'm going, I can make a lot of money over here, oh, I can make a lot of money over here, but yeah. I can't do that in front of Bob. I can't insult Bob that way. I'm Bob's lady. I can't go off turning tricks along with Bob. That's just disrespectful, right? He's obviously doing a lot of smoking while I'm there, because I'm smoking with him now, and about 2 weeks into this, he starts going into cocaine paranoia, I guess you call it. He starts accusing me of something or other. I don't know. We start arguing with each other. And then all of a sudden, there's a child in the house. There was like a 10-year-old boy that walked in the house. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, who's this kid? And he goes, that's my son. And I'm going, where did this kid come from? He said, it's my week to watch the kid. And I'm like, in your condition? I mean, and the kid's sitting on the couch, and Dad's sitting right on the kitchen table, cooking and smoking, right in front of this kid, who's like 10.
Yeah. And
it's funny how people have weird ethical lines, I guess, because I couldn't even deal with it. I'm like, you have a child in this house? He goes, yeah. And I said, okay, time for me to leave. I got my shit, got up, left, called Child Protective Services.
Oh, you bet.
I mean, you don't know how hard that was for me, though. I mean, it was like, I'm not a rat. I mean, but there was a child there. I'm not kidding you. I went down to the corner payphone, called CPS, and then cried. Just cried because I felt like such a rat,
Yeah, and that's getting in someone's business. I mean, I got no room to talk here, but that's a tough one. So what happens?
I don't know. I don't know.
So that's it.
Now where do I go?
You didn't talk to Bob after that?
No. I couldn't. I just couldn't deal with it. He was exposing a child to this.
Wow. Okay. So now where do you go?
The only thing I could think of to do was to head back out to South Central. I wanted to go somewhere where I knew the police weren't going to bother me or try to kill me, you know what I mean, and where I could make some money. And I got in the car and I drove out to South Central.
American dream.
Oh, it's weird because, and there would be, I'm not kidding you, over 100 gang members standing out on one corner. And you would drive up, tell them what you wanted, and they'd give it to you through the window, and you'd drive on again. Drive through.
Yeah.
You know? And it's kind of scary because there's like 100 of them standing out there in like one spot at night on the street, right? Well, I just put on my best Mae West imitation, drove up and said, "Hiya, boys," you know? Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. And it was a lot of money, you know? So I start making a lot of money, start making a lot of friends, you know?
Yeah, so you're just hanging out and just selling or whatever.
Just hanging out.
Dealing.
Turning tricks and smoking dope.
Oh, another bumper sticker. Go ahead.
My God. Oh, God, that does sound like a bumper sticker, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. So, but, you know, this is the way I'm getting the lay of the land, so to speak, you know? I mean, because, of course, you know, a couple of guys, if they're going to want to turn a date with me, then we got to find a house. Okay, what house, you know? And then I'm getting, so this is how I'm getting inside the crack houses and seeing how they're run. And, you know, and the underlings are getting used to me. And then after I'm there a while and things are cool, then the guy a little higher up the food chain comes out. So, of course, they eventually all start showing up and telling their little underlings, "Get lost. I want to be alone with her," you know? Now, this is when I'm getting to know the guys higher ups in rank and developing a relationship with a lot of them, you know? With each faction, I'm doing the same process. I'm getting higher up until the head guy comes out. I'm sitting around for days smoking and fucking. It's like, who knows at this point what their name is, right?
Yeah.
You know? But that's also where I met Rick Freeway Ross.
So you're moving up the ranks in the Bloods and the Crips, and you are you know.
At this point, you know, I'm going to get a hotel. You know, I get cleaned up, I get a little bit of sleep, and then I go over to the next block. You know, work my way up to the next guy. You know, he came strolling in. He goes, "Where's this white girl?" You know, he takes one look at me, orders everybody out, and he goes, "You're mine. You ain't going nowhere, bitch." And just, you know, turns around, walks out, locks me in that fucking house.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
How did you get out of that?
Well, he'd come in about every other day, brutally rape me, you know. Oh, he did some weird sick shit to me. You know. Then he'd bring his friends in to show them how he owned me, you know. Show me off about basically how I was, he was my master, let's put it that way. At one point, he put a dog collar on me and had me paraded around on a chain to show them how much he owned me. And I remember thinking, I am going to fucking die here. You know, I have got to get out of this house. I mean, he had iron bars all over the house. And I mean, I was completely locked in when he would leave, right? And the neighbors, I would like bang on the stuff, and the neighbors would see me and they just ignore or go out. I mean, they would just completely ignore me. I mean, I'm literally banging on the thing going, "Hello, I'm locked up in here. Can you please call the cops or somebody get me out of here?" And they just go right on about their business like it was just business as usual. Oh, there's a white girl banging on the door saying she wants out. Oh, okay. I'm going to go to work now. But I now that I'm older, and again, I understand that their attitude was if they got involved, they'd get blown up. Yeah. When I realized I was going to die in that place, that's when I figured I'd better start putting my thinking cap on and figure out a way to get out of there.
Yeah, what the fuck, dude? Are you kidding me? That must have been terrible.
It was pretty traumatic. Yeah. And especially the things he would do to me to show off to his friends.
I would fucking lose my mind.
Yeah, he'd bring me some fast food once in a while to keep me fat at least. I mean, he treated me like a dog. But, I mean, at this point, I'm like, after about the second week, I mean, I thought it would wear off. It was not wearing off, and it was getting worse. And I remembered, it's funny, I remembered And you know what? I think my timing was perfect because I had squared up my mind that I was going to have to take control of the situation, is what it was. And so he walked in that night with 6 of his friends, and they all had baseball bats. And I had a feeling that was going to be my last night on earth when I saw him and 6 of his friends with baseball bats. I said, oh, we all are having a party tonight, aren't we? I said, well, I tell you what. I said, I'm going to take you one at a time, and that way everybody gets a turn, you know? And that way I figured I'd separate off one from the other, right? I got on the mommy voice and told them the other, I said, now you boys go sit down, make yourself something to eat, you know, I'm going to take care of him, you know, and I'll get to you, you know, and that kind of thing. Just sounded very calm. I started with the weakest one, you know, that I figured I could get to open that door because I was fighting for my life. I used every NLP trick I could think of on this guy, and it worked because he just stared at me, you know, and he did. He went on mental overload, I guess, because the eyes, they defocus when they're stacked like that. And then I got him to give me the bat because he knew I was going to crack his head wide fucking open if he didn't open that door and let me out that night.
It was a front door?
The main door out was the locked door on the side of the house.
And he opened the door and you just ran?
Ran.
And were you, I mean, that is such a crazy story. So were you wearing anything? I mean, what was going on?
Nope. Butt naked. Ran back to my car. I had some clothes back in the car.
Your car was still there?
He had kept me completely naked, you know, for the whole 2 weeks. So, he didn't know where the car was, no. So, I mean, I was able to get back in my car and get the fuck out of there before he realized I was gone.
And that's it?
Gone. Yeah.
God. So what did you do after that?
Same thing. I went and got a hotel room, got some sleep, went to another block, you know?
Oh, my God.
That was just a block I avoided after that. That was his block, and I just stayed away from that block, you know? I remember there was a guy who, I think his name was Nick. He had a place where his side of the house was like a crack house, okay? He had a disabled grandmother that he would take care of who was like blind and deaf. So she had no idea he was dealing drugs out of her house. It was so strange. But he was like a 16-year-old kid, you know? But he was really nice. And I knew he was always at this house. I figured I'll go see this Nick guy. Because Nick, he would get these like shipments every day. There'd be a truck that would come by and drop off the drugs that he would sell at the crack house, right?
Yeah.
And I said to him something to the effect of, you know what? You know, I need to make a lot of money. I need to make it quick. I said, if you know of any, you know, deals going on, whatever, like, let me know, you know? And Nick introduced me to his boss, I guess you call it. I can't remember. I think his name was Dwayne. Something like that. I don't know. He was very light skinned. He was older too, obviously. That's what struck me different about him. It's interesting. I don't know. Dwayne was interesting because he really showed me like the inner workings of what was going on down in South Central, so to speak, as far as the crack houses went. He started showing me. He goes, yeah. He says, we've got the truck that comes and brings the and drops off the drugs. And then he starts showing me how every block has got its crack house, you know, and how each crack house is run, because they're actually duplexes. He said, so we store the drugs on one half of the house, but then we're selling out of the other half, you know. And then he goes, but you're going to have to learn the language, because this is when I started hearing that fascismal manizzle stuff, and I've been kind of ignoring it, because, I mean, I don't know what the hell they were talking about, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, we've grown up in jails, basically. He said, so we've had to learn to dress a certain way, talk a certain way, have our own language, have our own way of doing things. And he said, that's because we've had to learn to operate right under the guard's nose. And I'm like, okay. So he says, you're going to have to learn our language and learn how we do things if you're going to, you know, be a part of the system out here. When they would drop off the drugs, they would drop off tapes, mixtapes, you know, like, or their rap tapes. And that you see them always doing that they be selling their tapes out of the trunk of their car back in those days, right? They didn't have record stores, they didn't have Tower Records. And he goes, think about it. He said, the cops are coming by, they're stopping us, we're playing our music. He said, these are how we communicate with each other. They think it's just music and they're not listening to the words. He said, you know, we've got a big shipment coming in and I know that they're not going to stop the truck if you're driving. He said, you're driving. I'm like, okay, you know, I mean, you know, I'm game for anything, right? Like I said, we drove down like through Compton and Watts, and then we drove down all the way down to the beach where the pier is, and I think that's San Pedro.
So you're at the docks. This is like industrial
I'm
docks?
At the dock.
Or
yeah.
Okay, so can you describe that? Is it just you and him, and what kind of truck are we talking?
It was huge. It was a huge truck. Like a box truck.
Yeah.
You know? And then, yeah, I drove him down in the box truck. We drive down to the pier, you know? And, yeah, it was a pier. I just remember a bunch of boats. And next thing I know, there's a whole bunch of guys loading up the back of the truck, you know? I mean, just cartons and cartons and cartons of the shit, you know?
Of Coke you're talking about?
Yeah.
And it's boxes?
Right off the boat.
Like what?
But, I mean, I saw them take it out of the boat, take it into the warehouse, put it in the boxes, and then put it on the truck.
Wow, you seen something there.
Yeah. And because we took it off the boat, put it in the boxes, and we got it in the truck, and I take it to another warehouse. That warehouse, I'm hanging around while it's all being packaged in the smaller units, and then each box is separated for each crack house. I mean, there's military precision in this. And then the guy that's going with me that night, he's showing me the route. He said, this is our, you know, daily route. We did like the milkman, you know, we stop here, we stop there, you know. And I'm like the milkman? They go, we do it every day. I'm like, wow. I mean, you know, my mind is getting a scope on how big this is, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, who are all these guys? You know, because I mean, about how are you getting all these guys to do this at once? I mean, who's in control of all of this, right? He started laughing at me and he started talking to me about he goes, do you think we've got this kind of coordination, you know, just among ourselves? He said, don't you think it takes a lot of people to coordinate this shit? You know? And I'm like, he goes, and then he made a crack about, do you think any of these kids knows how to run these boats? You know, I'm like, no. I mean, you know, these kids don't even drive a car, let alone are they handling boats and airplanes, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, he goes, well, he said, if you had a cop telling you to make a run for you or spend the next 5 years in jail, what are you going to do? You know? Okay. So, yeah, and I said, so are you telling me that these kids are being forced into it by the cops? Is that what you're telling me? Right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm starting to get a bigger picture about why maybe they're coming after me. Again, it's more about covering up what they're doing. Of course, there's always going to be somebody who's not in on this, right? Some cop's going to pull somebody over. I mean, accidents happen. Not everybody's in on this. There's only a few handful that know what's going on. So, you know, I'm like the perfect cover. And this is why they're looking at me like, you know, I'm useful. You hear stories about, you know, this guy and that guy. I mean, you hear these things all the time and you get a grasp. And that's how during that time, Rick Freeway Ross, the reason why I remembered him is when I went to the warehouse where they were packaging the stuff, that's when I first saw him. And because you don't know people's names back then, you know their faces, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't know the guy's name back then, but when I heard the story, like you're saying, you know, it rings a bell like it's similar. I remember hearing that he was involved in Iran Contra, and then they framed him for life. And I go, gee, he was real. I saw him there. I saw him in that warehouse. He was part of that whole operation. And the guy that they made blow on, I saw him once too down at the beach. Because I remember once they took me someplace down on the beach too, and I remember seeing his face. And then when I saw the documentary, I went, "Oh yeah, I remember that face." So yeah, he was also really there too.
Do you remember what
You
beach?
know? Venice.
Venice Beach. You saw the guy from Blow.
Yeah.
I believe it, man. You guys are in the same. It's the same story here, kind of. You're just at different angles. There's not.
He was all part of the same network. He was one of the pilots. From what I remember, he was one of the pilots.
Yeah, I believe.
You know, so he was part of. I mean, this was a huge network, and it was operating with military precision.
Oh, it still is.
And you would hear, yeah. Oh God, now it's even. Oh my God,
yeah,
it's even
dark.
1,000 times more.
Yeah.
I mean, but back then, you know, we were coordinating, like I said, through these tapes and through these languages and through these drop-off points. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
you know, and I'm looking at it like I'm making a lot of money and I'm keeping out of the valley. That's the way I'm looking at it. But I'm also trying, at the same time, I'm trying to buy time to process what the hell is going on with my case and why LAPD is so mad at me in the valley. You know. That's kind of what I'm doing, is like trying to process what I'm going to do, what's going on, you know, that kind of thing. But I also know I need to raise a lot of money. And I did have to raise a lot of money.